Hey YouTube, I had a thought about something. I just learned today about a crime that is occurring silently across the oceans of the world right now, especially in certain oceans around Asia and whatnot. Um, I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but shipwrecks are disappearing. World War II shipwrecks, American, British, few other ones, they're being salvaged off the bottom of the ocean. Now, considering that these are war graves, some of these ships had hundreds of sailors that died on them, and their remains are down in there. And these ships are being scooped up off the bottom of the floor of the ocean. And the way they're doing it is they are going out there, they're sinking explosives down to the wreck. They're blowing the wrecks to pieces, and they're bringing the steel up from these wrecks with clam buckets. And no surprise, the perpetrators tend to be Chinese, or they tend to be other nefarious groups related to them. So, considering that this is sovereign territory of the United States and Britain that's being looted, would that not be a warlike act? You know, number one, you're kind of soulless, and I've always thought about this as that kind of thing. It takes a really soulless individual to rob graves. That's the lowest form of scum, no matter who sanctions it. It's the lowest form of scum. And I don't really have a care as to what happens to them if something should happen to them while they're doing this. So I had a thought on it, you know. Have you ever seen... They're doing this in New York and other places. It's a device that they put, if you park in a no parking space or a place that's metered and your meter runs out, they put a device on the windshield of your car called a barnacle. And it's basically a big yellow square. And when they engage this thing, it sucks itself to the window of the car. And there's nothing you can do. You can smash on that thing all day with a hammer. You could set off bombs around it. The only way to literally get that thing off without the key code is to bust out your own windshield. You cannot drive the car with this thing on the car. It blocks the windshield. But think about this. It's an armor-topped thing. There's no way for a civilian to remove it easily. So here's my thought. Let's make a little, maybe a cannonball-sized, or maybe, I don't know, a propane tank-sized robots. We can make several hundred of them. What they do, you sink them down to the wreck. They have a little weak magnet, and they attach themselves to the wreck. And when they hit the bottom of that wreck, they arm. You can have a little CPU in there. You can have this be a smart device. It doesn't have to be too smart. A high school electronics student could build the control circuitry for this thing. And probably a metal shop student could build the body of this thing. And basically what it does, it's like a hemisphere. Out the top of it is about a 4-inch wide, kind of like a keyhole saw, but we'll make it with tungsten carbide teeth. So it can sit there and just cut and cut and cut and cut. And off the same motor, off the bottom of it, you have the propulsion system, so it can propel itself. And some little guidance fin controlled by the microcontroller. And what this thing does is it goes down to the wreck and it attaches itself by gravity. And it sits there. And it has a little switch, so it doesn't utilize any battery power once it gets down there. It could be a mechanical switch, like a proximity mine. Those things are still blowing up to this very day. But what you do is this thing goes down there, attaches to the body of the boat. It has a weakish magnet. That's the key to this, because it's got to be able to break away. And when they set off explosives on the boat and they blow a part of the ship off, all of these other ones, those little motion switches inside there rattle, and it goes clink, and it switches on. And it executes its code. And the first thing it does is it starts going up. And when it sees something, say the relative shape and size of a barge with a line coming down from it, your batteries are good. It's going to sit for years down there. When it sees that, it homes in on the bottom of it, and it's spherical on the bottom, and this is like hard material. You're not going to blow this off the boat without blowing the boat up. So what this thing does is the same motor that's driving the drill bit, which is spinning and providing gyro stabilization as it goes up along with the fins. It guides itself to the bottom of that boat, and it goes clink. And when it clinks on, that drill begins chewing through the bottom of that barge. You got to remember, you got several hundred of these things, and they've all homed in on the same thing. And they're all busily drilling those holes in the bottom of that barge. You're not getting away with that ship. You're not getting away with what you stole. You better have a lifeboat. And if you don't have a lifeboat, well, the risk is part of the game, and that's the game you play. But these things, they clink onto the bottom. You can use really, really strong neodymium type magnets, rare earth magnets. So once they clank on there, or maybe a strong electromagnet, because it's only got to run a little while. It doesn't need massive power for ages. It just needs enough power to get up there, clank onto the bottom of that thing, and be undetachable. And see that sphere underneath with those fins? You can make that out of something like titanium or some other hard metal, something non-magnetic, because you want the magnets to only grab the ship, and you don't want them to be able to pry it off or cut it off. You want something that they can't cut easily, because they will send divers down. But this thing just sits there, and that's its only job, is it's drilling a 4-inch wide hole in the bottom of this boat. And when it drills through, and it cuts that steel, all the electromagnet disengages and it drops off, and now you've got a 4-inch wide hole admitting the ocean into the bottom of this thing. Multiply that by several hundred, and you see where I'm going with this. And these things aren't going to hurt anybody. They're not going to blow up and kill somebody. The only thing they're going to do is they're going to keep you from getting away with what you plundered. They're going to sink your boat, and pray to hell you got a lifeboat on there for your crew, because if you don't, you're kind of screwed. In fact, it's going to cost you dearly anyway, because all that salvage equipment on the top of that barge is going to the bottom of the ocean, along with what you stole. And that's my thought on it. That's my thought. It's a simple way to do it. It's like I said, a high school student could write the guidance code for this thing. And it's a real simple thing. I mean, it's just basically a motor propelling this thing. It's an electromagnet, and it's a big lithium battery or some kind of battery that can sit up for a long, long, long time. Maybe it has a saltwater battery like some of that emergency rescue stuff has, where when they're triggered to life, it opens up a valve and energizes the battery, and the thing boots up and goes after the aggressor. It could sit there for years. You would never have to worry about it. The only thing you'd have to worry about is the barge coming down on top of the ship. But you know what? Those brave sailors just scored another victory for good old Uncle Sam. So there you go. Take that as you will. You may think I'm heartless, but I cannot tolerate a thief, and the last goddamn thing I can tolerate is a grave robber. I don't care who the hell they are and what state sponsors them. That's all this is. These are no different than the grab asses that go into a maybe, maybe not abandoned building and they scrap all the copper out of it. Same kind of crap, only on a larger scale. Send them to the bottom of the sea.